I'm Gabriella Proni for CMS-Connected. Nearly a month ago, Darin Archer, previously with IBM, joined ElasticPath as their new Chief Marketing Officer. Described as a technology maverick by ElasticPath's CEO for his drive to challenge the entire industry, we were eager to speak with him to get a sense of his unique view of the online experience. Hi Darin, how are you today?
I'm great. Thank you.
So, what is it about ElasticPath that made you want to join the team?
Well, first, let me say thanks for letting me connect with you guys. I'm really excited about some of the work that CMS-Connected is putting out there. I think this space is a really changing space, and having been a practitioner on the commerce side, that really led the idea of putting a CMS in front of a commerce platform to empower marketers to start to own the shopping experience. I'm really excited that you guys are covering it from that perspective. Which gets me to why I joined ElasticPath. As you think about where the web has evolved from, the early days where we actually all wished we could have virtual reality and augmented reality, and there was this idea that we were going to have virtual shopping malls and avatars and everything else. Back then there wasn't the bandwidth, and certainly the web browser did not have the capabilities with HTML 1.0. And so we went into this lull. We went into this period where, we were limited by bandwidth, we were limited by the fidelity of the browser, and so we created really boring online experiences. And e-commerce became something that was, our beautiful products that we spend so much passion and energy on, whether they're made by us or even as a retailer, the ones that we resell. We relegate them to little thumbnails and rows and columns on category pages, which just never made sense to me, right? And in the beginning, I understood the constraints and why that had to be. But as you fast forward and you get to the point where, Flash is out there and then HTML5, and obviously we don't have any bandwidth challenges today. I mean, we're having, this conversation with video and all kinds of capabilities. The platforms didn't catch up. And from an e-commerce perspective, a lot of them were still architected to present the commerce experience as rows and columns of little products thumbnailed. And with ElasticPath, that we saw this pivot, if you will, a few years ago, and started to reshape the product to be ready to enable that marketer that has a CMS and is creating landing pages for campaigns and building out microsites sometimes, right? And allow them to make all that content shoppable. So today, still a struggle. And those of you listening in on this and reading it and watching it, right? You're going to pop out to some of your favorite brands, and you'll see it. The marketer has effectively a, go to the store button, right? Versus being able to just add to cart. And you scratch your head and go, why do I have to do that? And it's because, this capability has been so hard given the architecture of traditional e-commerce platforms required running the store. And we don't have that. We basically redesigned it for this era of CMSs, Alexa, Google Homes, and all these different touch points that are coming. So that's exciting to me as a marketer, because I want to enable my peers to do that. And it's exciting to be, within a company that's got a platform heading towards this new era, I think, of who knows how we'll be shopping, right? We've got shoes out there from Pizza Hut. You click the tongue and it orders a pizza. So.
Absolutely. Those are some really great points, and that era is always evolving. Speaking of evolution, in the press release, Harry Chemko describes you as a technology maverick and the original champion of experience-driven commerce. Can you describe the ways in which you intend on challenging the digital commerce market with ElasticPath?
Absolutely. So, I've been challenging this notion that our shopping experiences online should be these little boxes and rows and columns for a while now. And we've come a little ways with some brands that have stepped forward and they did lookbooks and other kind of creative assets on their website to be able to create that shopping experience that was more than just a category page. But it required engagement with the commerce platform in a different way. So what I did back as a practitioner was started to try to change the content such that at that point of inflection, you could, add to basket. And, in the beginning, the idea of content and commerce coming together, no one really got it. I mean, marketing didn't own the commerce site. They didn't want to necessarily be responsible for the checkout funnel or the flow or any of those conversion metrics, right? They just wanted to create the beautiful site that brought the eyeballs in and then ultimately started someone on their journey. And then there was the e-commerce team that did it separate. So, I've been challenging that notion for a while and getting folks to really say, hey, let's bring the two teams together and let's make all that content shoppable. And I think going forward, it's really about pushing this industry forward even more and saying, hey, as a brand, if you want to be relevant to your customer today, you can't just hope that Amazon's going to represent you well, right? Or even some of your favorite retailers that are just selling and distributing your products. You've got to get out there and have that customer experience because, I go back to my childhood where the reality was just, ski season would come up and you only had a couple options for that jacket you might buy to go hit the slopes, right? And they were good options. I think growing up, I had Columbia, sportswear and a couple others. And then I remember when North Face, came out. But you think of today, and I can not only buy a multitude of other brands that are available to me here as a consumer in the US, but I can also learn about and find out about brands like a Jack Wolfskin in Europe and not only learn about them, but purchase it and have that cool jacket shipped to me, right? And so I think because of the nature of how consumers are able to access content and engage from a shopping perspective brands, we have to really reimagine the shopping experience and start to connect those dots.
I agree. Reimagining the shopping experience will definitely make an impact for customers. In regards to the customer experience, what are the foundational principles of experience-driven commerce, and what are some ways brands can reach that point?
So the first and foremost, I think of the kind of the foundational principle is don't send your shopper somewhere else to buy, right? Now imagine this, right? In the real world, we all have, I'm going to use some cliche retail examples, right? And they're cliche, but I'd also say they're phenomenal retailers. So we all should keep talking about them. In the U.S., in North America, predominantly Nordstrom is a great example, right? In London, there's Suffrages. Suffrages, arguably the original retailer that imagined visual merchandising and started to create experience-driven commerce in the store, right? Took the department store to that next level that said, hey, the product should be put out on the shelves in a certain way. There should be store displays and window displays, and you should really get people excited about the products and the brands. And imagine if when you went into a Suffrages and you went through that shopping experience, or you went through it at a Saks Fifth Avenue or Nordstrom, et cetera, and they, at the end, after kind of figuring everything out that you wanted, they just wished you luck and sent you on your way and said, okay, now you're going to need to go outside, go down the street, couple blocks, take a left. There's an alley, a little store with our son. Go through that, and that's where our warehouse is. And then when you get into the warehouse, go find all the products that we think are wonderful for you that you've chosen to buy today, and you can check out over there. We would never think of doing something like that in the real world. But yet, that's effectively what we have online, particularly with a lot of brand manufacturers and even retailers. They'll often create some beautiful content space, and then it's kind of like, all right, now go to the store, right, and go buy those products. So the first foundational element is let's make that content shoppable. If you have me excited about something and I want to add it to my basket, don't make me walk down the alleyway, right? Like, let me add the basket right there. And that does require a pretty big technology lift to make sure that those content experiences are shoppable, and also aligning sometimes, multiple parties in an organization where you may have a leader that owns the e-commerce store and a leader that owns the brand site. So you have to bring those together. So I would say that, that's the starting point. That's the foundation, as you asked. And then beyond that, it's just, continue to push the envelope on creating compelling creative experiences that matches up to what Suffragists started, 100 years ago plus, right, with visual merchandising.
I couldn't agree more with you. Making content shoppable and continuing to push the envelope will create compelling experiences for customers. Now, with your deep experience in the digital commerce industry, what are the technology trends you think are the most important right now, or you will see in the near future?
I think the biggest trend is figuring out some of these new engagement models. The emphasis really lately has been on, continues to be on virtual reality or augmented reality. And I think there's a lot of great use cases for that, particularly in the retail space where you have large retailers, think a do-it-yourself retailer or department store where, you might want to help the customer get in and out faster, get to their product. I think like Lowe's is doing some really neat things in the US with their mobile app, and you can, do a product search and then quickly it'll literally show you with, augmented reality with how to walk down the aisle and where that product is. And I think that's phenomenal. I don't think that the use cases will be that great, but we're all surprised sometimes by what this technology enables and then how, our imagination takes advantage of it. But I do think voice is increasingly becoming a larger part of how we'll interact with brands. And I think, if I think about, just even a few years ago, it was awkward to do a video conference and at work and people didn't do it. Yet we've had video conferencing capabilities for years now, but no one turned on their camera, right? And it took an alignment of, again, bandwidth, everyone's computer having a front-facing camera, right? And then it was us all being comfortable with the idea. So it was a cultural shift. I think voice is one of those trends where we don't really know when it's going to pop, but I think it'll pop in a similar and probably bigger way. Because we're all probably in our open spaces at work and as knowledge workers, we're all not going to start talking to our computers all day probably. It could get a little rambunctious that way, kind of why they don't let us talk on our phones on airplanes, right? But, as a new parent that sometimes has their handful with a 5-month-old and, loves to call out and ask Alexa to start playing music or, put something in a shopping cart, I can see those channels really becoming a key part of how we engage in brands. And increasingly with, connected cars, with our, just the landscape around us, everything effectively is becoming having an internet connection and has a microphone or maybe a camera or something like that. So I think that's the biggest trend is how do we move from creating these visually stunning experiences that we are doing today on our websites and on our mobile apps and mobile web to creating something that has the same emotional connection or customer engagement when it's just voice or some kind of blinking LED or who knows what, IoT use case will be thrown at us, the buttons and dash buttons and everything else. So, but that's the big trend that I think is, really going to start having an uptick both in our homes and our work and in our transportation. And as marketers, we got to figure out how to make that not be like the thumbnails in rows and columns on a shopping site.
That's fantastic. Well, that's all the questions I have for you, Darin. You were so insightful and engaging. I really got the sense of your excitement about what ElasticPath can do. It was wonderful to speak with you.
Well, thank you. This has been great. And I look forward to seeing, how you take us all through some of this journey as well.
Thanks so much.
You're welcome.
That was Darin Archer of ElasticPath discussing why he joined the team, challenges in the digital commerce market, the foundational principles of experience-driven commerce, and the current and future technology trends in that space.